what if I want to talk about twist endings now? I guess we don't have a choice if we're talking about M. Night Shyamalan. Is that what he? I mean, that's what it says on that's what it says on Wikipedia. Is what he? I feel like Signs. I feel like the whole idea behind Signs is the whole movie is a twist, or it's not a twist, or it's saying something different about twists. I think in general in movies, it's almost commenting on twists in movies, less having a twist itself.
It's kind of like Rosemary's Baby, where they're actually right about what's going on. Now, that's maybe not a good example. There is something happening. She's not right about the exact thing that's happening.
It's like Hereditary.
But
she doesn't actually know what's going on, but something is happening underneath everything.
The twist in Signs would be that it's not aliens. I mean,
right.
It's suspected that it's aliens from the beginning.
Right.
The only real question is, are people doing this or is it real? And that gets sorted out pretty quickly. So it doesn't really follow the formula. But I mean, many of his other films definitely have twists.
So on this episode of the Kulturecast, I am still your host, Chris Dashu, and I am joined by my good friend all the way from the Wake Up Heavy podcast out there in podcast land. He's part of the Weirding Way Media Network. Your friend and mine, Mark Begley.
I see podcasters.
You live in California, so yeah, I bet you do. The joke in California is that everybody has a podcast, and in that state, you might be right. In this state, probably not so much. But woof. On this episode, we're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's first three films, because do you really want us to talk about his fourth, fifth, and sixth movies? I don't. You don't want us to, because one of those movies is Lady in the Water. And if we want to talk about the three movies after those, The Last Airbender, After Earth, and The Visit, only one of those is even a movie. So on this episode, we will be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's first three films. We're doing yet another bonus episode for Horror-tober. Those three films are The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs.
You know the accident up there?
Yeah.
Someone got hurt.
They did?
A lady. She broke her neck.
Oh my God, but you can see her?
Yes.
Where is she?
Standing next to my window.
Baby, why are you shaking? Cole, what's wrong?
Did you ever talk to your mom about how things are?
I don't tell her things.
Why not?
Because she doesn't look at me like everybody else, and I don't want her to. I don't want her to know.
Know what?
I see dead people walking around like regular people.
I don't see anything. Are you sure they're there?
Sometimes you feel it inside, like you're falling down real fast. You ever feel the prickly things on the back of your neck?
Yes.
That's them. They get mad. It gets cold.
How often do you see them?
All the time. They're everywhere. They want me to do things for them.
I think that they know that you're one of these very rare people who can see them. So you need to help them.
What if they don't want to help?
I don't think that's the way it works.
How do you know for sure?
Is anyone there?
Look out! Please make them leave.
I'm working on it.
So The Sixth Sense premiered in 1999. It is written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It's produced by Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy. So there is that. And it stars a very young, hair-having Bruce Willis, a very young Toni Collette, and an even younger Haley Joel Osment. Haley Joel Osment plays a young boy named Cole who, like Mark Begley said, sees dead people. We will be spoiling this movie, but is this not the movie? Like the movie to spoil? Was this not the movie to spoil for like years?
Yeah. Well, and as I discussed with my daughter briefly, we watched this actually not too long ago because we were on an M. Night Shyamalan kick when Once Old came out. We watched that and I'm like, well, we got to go back now and watch the other ones. And she's been doing episodes with me about what we watched during the month. And I said, your mom and I totally missed this twist. We didn't see it in the theater. That was the year we met. And I think she had moved here by then. Just didn't get around to going to see it. Once we finally rented it, which was probably pretty soon after it went to VHS, I still didn't know the twist. So I was totally surprised by the twist. I did not pick up on the twist while I was watching it.
Interesting.
And when it ended, I'm like, wait a minute, did they play fair with that? Because I was like, oh, I didn't catch on. It seemed like they cheated, but the numerous times that I've watched it since then, I'm like, oh no, they didn't cheat. It's actually pretty obvious, but it's hidden very well. It is hidden very well. If you had no idea, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, especially these days, not that this was the first movie with a twist, obviously, but I think if first time back then, a good number of people missed it as well. I just didn't, I've said this a bunch of times, but I don't watch, that seems like a cynical way to watch a film. I am kind of naive. I'll just let movies wash over me. And so I'm not really paying attention. I wouldn't have noticed that he's wearing the same clothes throughout the whole movie because he kind of switches up his outfit. He's him as in Bruce Willis, he's in the clothes that he died in. And that's pretty true for all the ghosts that Cole sees. But it's a combination of the things. Sometimes he's wearing the sweater that he had on at one point. Sometimes he's wearing a full suit. Sometimes he's just wearing the shirt and tie, blah, blah, blah. But it's all the clothes that he was wearing the night he was killed. So they hide that well. The scenes between him and his wife play out really well to where you could catch it, but also it makes sense that they're just, things kind of fell apart after he got shot.
Right.
And they're distant. And so, yeah, I didn't catch it at all and was surprised by the surprise ending.
So I had never seen this movie either. I didn't see it when it came out at the time. I didn't see it when it came out at the time either. But the twist is so ubiquitous at this point. Like it's as ubiquitous as Luke, no, Luke, I am your father, because that's the actual line. But, I see dead people is now in the pantheon of movie quotes of all time, forever and always. There's nothing that you can do to take that away from this movie. That being said, it's a good movie.
It's a damn good movie.
But that fucking twist, man, is not that big of a deal. Like I know I don't want to be Mr. Smart Movie guy, but they do so much to make it so obvious so early on that I get that the twist is kind of like the one of the things that everybody gets hung up on. But I think it was pretty obvious. I'm again not trying to be Mr. Smart Movie guy, just like the way he shot Bruce Willis, not in the not shot, but the way the cameras and the M. Night shoots him along with Tak Fujimoto, which is just that you have Tak Fujimoto working on this movie.
Yeah, man.
Itself.
Our dude from Sounds of the Lambs.
Right. And that for me is what makes this movie good, is that it's a really well-made movie. The twist doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter. It
is earned, but they don't even earn it. They don't have to earn it because the movie's just so good on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, since the twist isn't really about Cole, it is somewhat irrelevant, but it's touching and it's human. And that's the thing at the end that always gets me. The two final scenes, Cole with his mom, and then when Malcolm, Bruce Willis's character, finally realizes when he gets home and his wife drops the ring, it's kind of devastating. So it's just it's more of an emotional release. And it doesn't have any bearing really on the problem of the film, which is Cole's issue.
Right.
So yeah, it doesn't change anything about him, Cole, or his problems or his issues with his mom or any of that. It's totally separate. But
But the framing device that they use is the character of Vincent Gray, played by, unbeknownst to me, Donnie Wahlberg. Doesn't look anything like him.
No, I remember getting halfway through the movie and going, when the fuck does Donnie Wahlberg show up? I saw his name. It's like fourth listed at the opening of the film. I'm like, where the hell is Donnie Wahlberg? I'm like, oh, what? He was a dude in the bathroom?
Yeah. Doesn't look like
unrecognizable.
Yeah, he's real rough looking. To put
super skinny and that hair combed forward and all that. So it still doesn't look like him to me when I watch it, and I know it's him.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about this movie that I do appreciate is it is a hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Bruce Willis is really good. Obviously. But to say obviously now feels like a shock to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame. I mean, Bruce Willis now, given what he's been dealing with his own health issues aside, that doesn't change what Bruce Willis was doing for the last decade, which was making a lot of direct-to-video and direct-to-streaming movies that traded on the cachet of his name. Movies like this are why.
Oh, yeah.
Because of how good he is in this movie, how good this movie is in a lot of ways because of him, but also because Haley Joel Osment turns in like one of the great child actor performances of all time.
Yeah.
Like ever, frankly.
Top 10. Yeah, absolutely.
Not precocious, believably troubled.
Yeah. Very natural.
Mm-hmm. And it's a nice bookend that they have with Donnie Wahlberg essentially playing, in a lot of ways, a grown-up version of Haley Joel Osment's character. That I feel like was the big twist of the movie, but they show it almost immediately. It's that Bruce Willis's character exists to prevent this from happening again.
Right.
And what I don't understand is when you see Bruce Willis's character sitting on that bench at the beginning of the movie, reading the paperwork of someone who is clearly dead for someone who he is going to try and help now. Like, how did anybody think this was anything other than ghosts? I don't understand. It's insane to me.
It's that
we just watch too much movies.
It's hindsight though as well. It becomes glaringly obvious once you have seen it the first time, or if you were privy to the twist before you ever see it, then it's like everything kind of stands out. But I think it's played really well in that opening. I mean, it's still, when you hear the dialogue, you hear the things that Haley Joel Osment says to him, like, I'm going to see you again, aren't I? Stuff like that. It's like a lot of the dialogue has a dual meaning. But, if you're just sitting there kind of watching it, like, okay, this is a kid that's apparently really disturbed and closed off and doesn't, he's meeting a new person. It plays out that way too. The one thing that always stood out to me that seemed odd was when Cole comes home and Bruce Willis and Toni Collette are sitting in those chairs.
That's cheating.
And it's like, why aren't they talking to each other? It's not cheating though, because they're not conversing. She doesn't acknowledge him at all.
I know, but you and I both know it's as close to cheating as they get in this movie.
I'm like,
I think it's like
really
the one
weird
scene, right? It's the one scene where it gets where it's like, again, they don't show one another talking, but it's like it's right there. It's at the cusp. It's one step, it's one step from the edge. That's what it feels like. That scene specifically, because they show it again at the end of the movie to further reinforce, like, she wasn't talking to him. He wasn't talking to her. Like, it's that for me is the one moment where I was like, you're not playing entirely fair here. And that was the one moment. Because again, it's like, but we assume they were talking. It's like, no, they weren't talking. They never were talking because he's dead.
Yeah. We assume they were having a conversation about him, and this is part of the treatment. And
which, good on M. Night for taking us to task as audience and assuming that that's what we're going to assume, because he's right.
Yeah. It's a little too long of a shot to make it stands out as odd.
Yeah.
Like, why are they sitting there? I mean, he's walked through the door. So, if they were having a conversation, they stopped because he came in, but still it's just a peculiar, even the way it's shot with them, framed on the right and left of the screen and Cole right in the middle. So I think it just maybe brings a little more attention to itself than most of the other scenes that have obvious dialogue. Cole's trying to telegraph this to him throughout the film without really expressly saying it.
Which I appreciate that M. Night was like, let's make it so that the audience, we are supposed to be Bruce Willis in this movie in a lot of ways, right? Bruce Willis is the audience. Yeah. And most of the time that would not work, but yet it does here. And again, I think it goes directly to M. Night as a director and a screenwriter, because this is written and directed by, and we're here. I mean, really, why are we talking about the M. Night Shyamalan movies? We didn't even bring it up, but I feel like we both know why, because we talked about the one and only Jordan Peele.
Right.
And he is getting compared to Jordan Peele in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I made that comparison myself on that episode. And because of I had seen it before, and it's a pretty obvious comparison, but the Red Letter Media thing on Nope and all that made me think, oh yeah, again, high concept. This isn't really high concept. Maybe
this
Unbreakable.
This is pretty simple stuff, I think.
Unbreakable, The Village, possibly The Happening. Some of the later films sort of get into that realm. But yeah, this is so much a human story that, unless you consider Ghosts high concept material, it's not really that. But yeah, it's so well made. And like you mentioned, the time, I looked at that because I watched all three of these recently, and I was like, wait a minute, they're all like the same. They're all 1 hour and 46 minutes. I think Unbreakable is 147. And maybe that has longer credits. I don't know, but they're pretty much all the same length of time. And it's sort of a perfect length. None of them overstay their welcome, I don't think. And they're not getting into that, why is this 2 hours range at all? I always kind of like, a lot of people talk about, 90 minutes. Why aren't more movies 90 minutes? I like 90-minute movies. Sometimes 90-minute movies feel like they're 3 hours long. Sometimes 3-hour movies just fly by. These are movies that don't overstay their welcome. Like I said, they move quickly. The pacing is great in these three films. Unbreakable might kind of lose it a little bit. It's a little bit slower paced, but everything in these first three movies needs to be in there, because a lot of them are set up and payoff scenes.
Almost, say that especially in this movie.
Yeah, this is all. This is constant.
Signs, I think, is like the worst offender of that. I think Signs should be renamed "Set Up and Pay Off the Movie." But The Sixth Sense has a lot of it. But again,
a lot of setup for sure.
Yeah,
and then the big payoff.
And I think that the payoff at the end feels earned. As much as it's not like not that I'm not a fan of it. It's just like, yeah, of course he was dead. Like, yeah, like I don't like the story always makes more sense if he's dead. Like his journey never makes sense unless he's dead. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he always feels out of place in the story. Bruce Willis does. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like. Everything always in movies feels so weird when you're dead, especially if it's a you don't know you're dead thing where you're interacting with people and they're not talking to you. Again, M. Night Shyamalan does enough, I think, to give enough of the audience a bit of plausible deniability that they can convince themselves he's not dead long enough to be surprised by the twist. But I think it's pretty obvious. And it makes the story better. Like, it's a better movie because he is dead. He is a ghost. It makes more sense. It's a more interesting and compelling story because when you watch it again after knowing the twist, like you said, Haley Joel Osment is really trying to get him to the fucking point.
Right.
Him to, because again, Bruce Willis thinks that he's saving Haley Joel Osment, and I think he is, but at the same time, he's also saving himself or coming to terms with what it would take to save himself.
They're helping each other. Haley Joel Osment is helping him
as much as he's helping him.
Because he says at some point, they don't know they're dead.
They early on, he see what they want to see.
Right. And so I think he's aware enough to know that he can't say to Malcolm, "You're a ghost too. That's why you scared me early on and why I didn't want to be around you." your wife is not stepping out on you. Go solve this now, because they're not going to hear that. So that's the one thing that always kind of I question, like, why doesn't he just tell him? They're creating this relationship. He opens up to him finally at one point when he's in the hospital bed. And then it's like, well, just tell him, give the guy a break. But I think that line of they see what they want to see and they don't know they're dead. Again, that shows how smart M. Night Shyamalan was in writing the script. Like, that question's kind of answered for you. Not only does it work better, but it sort of makes me feel better. I know this is kind of a weird thing to say, but it makes me feel better to know that he's dead, because the stuff with his wife always bothers me. Her coworker, those scenes with him, the younger guy that's like trying to move in on her. And It's like, because I kind of hate that shit. Like, and so I feel and felt for him, Malcolm, going like, yeah, keep moving, cheese dick, when he says that line. I'm like, yeah, man, she's married. What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
They might have a shitty relationship right now, but they're still married. And so it's sort of a relief at the end to me. Okay, she's not stepping out on him. This guy isn't being really untoward. It might be kind of soon for her. It's only the next fall, according to the titles. But yeah, it's sort of a comfort to me. Like, yeah, they're not being disrespectful to their marriage. I don't know. That's, call me old fashioned.
Well, and what I don't understand about those scenes is, how do you, if you're an audience member sitting in the movie watching those scenes in 1999, how do you explain to yourself what's going on in those scenes? Where like Bruce Willis comes to the store and punches a hole in the glass window outside and then walks off, and they see him. Like, what is the explanation you're giving yourself? Because Tak Fujimoto is doing a very good job as the cinematographer at making it clear what the characters are seeing and what they're not reacting to. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. The best kinds of these movies have characters reacting to things that at times they can and can't see, and also lack of reaction to things that we as the audience can see. And The Sixth Sense is trading in that almost entirely, frankly, which I think is what, I just get this out of the way now, what makes this the better of the three movies that we watched. It's the most horror of the three movies. It's the only horror movie of the three, frankly, which I think is why I like it so much, because it does something with the conventions of the horror story that I appreciate, which is a very human story about what it might mean to be dead and not feel like you got everything you needed to get done in your time on Earth. I appreciate this story a lot, more than I appreciate the retelling of a superhero story, and more than I appreciate whatever the hell Signs is supposed to be. Not to get ahead of ourselves. But The Sixth Sense is look, if anyone wants to argue what M. Night Shyamalan's best movie is, there's no argument. It's this movie. It's this movie. It just has to be. It's so good. And you know what? Even if this is not the movie you like of his the most, it's like with Jordan Peele. This is Jordan Peele's best movie is Get Out. It might not be my favorite movie of his, but it's his best movie. This is M. Night Shyamalan's best movie. It also happens to be his movie that I, so far of the ones I've seen, like the most. I don't know if I would want to rewatch it, because you mentioned before we started talking that this one always hits you in the feels. I had never seen it before, and it hit me in the feels twice. At the ending, and then the scene in the car. And the scene in the car is a just masterclass in screenwriting in a way that doesn't feel maudlin and saccharine, because that scene doesn't work 10 times out of 10. 11 times out of 10, that scene doesn't work, and it feels fake and unearned. But in this movie, I was crying, like the whole scene. Yeah,
it's very touching. And it is not only the screenwriting, but Toni Collette and Haley Joel Osment. I mean,
oh my God.
It's just a devastating, and they're not talking about anything tragic. It's just that thing with Toni Collette's mom and the, her mom's answer to her question. When they get to that part, man, I fucking lose it. I don't want to talk about it right now. That you make me, do I make you proud? And the mom's response was every day. And it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then it keeps going. And the
Yeah.
scene keeps going for like another 5 minutes. I was like, oh my God, how is this the same guy who wrote so many bad things? Well, it's
no. What?
What? No, it doesn't make any sense, because this is a film that someone makes who has been doing this for a long time, who hasn't just been making films for like 5 years at this point. This is a filmmaker operating at peak performance with this movie. I mean, this is like what happened with Tales from the Crypt. The first episode of that show is the best episode of that show. At least it was when I watched it recently, until we got about 3/4 of the way through the third season. But it was the joke with that show is they put their best foot forward so hard that it's kind of hard to undo that. You did such a good job with your first movie. What else is there to say? Like, I'm not saying don't make any more movies, but when your first movie is Get Out, when your first movie is The Sixth Sense, like where do you have to go? Like, it's the pinnacle. The Sixth Sense is as far high into the sky of quality horror movies and important horror movies that as Get Out is in a lot of ways.
I mean, technically it's his third film, because we have Wide Awake, and then Praying with Anger or something like that.
Yeah, but Praying with Anger,
one that
is
he
like
starred.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen that. Written by, and that one was directed by him, but I don't think Wide Awake was. No, it was. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not counting those two for a number of reasons.
Most people don't.
For a number of reasons. I'm talking more purely to when he was doing these kinds of things tonally. And that's the thing. This was such a success. $40 million budget. This had a whole boatload of issues coming into it with Bruce Willis's Broadway brawler fallout, which is the reason he's in this movie. It's because that movie fell apart so hard because of him. And then this movie with first-time director in this kind of movie, screenwriter, first time, again, let's not say first time. He, like you said, had worked on other things, but nothing like this. And then you have this movie that relies on a twist ending, ends on the twist. The twist is the last scene in the movie,
right.
Which is, again, like stroke of genius on Shyamalan's part. But you have this movie that gets him the notoriety that he is still trading on now in 2022, puts Bruce Willis back on the map, because Bruce Willis in 1999 is... I mean, again, if Broadway Brawler and all the fallout from that is to be believed, which I have no reason not to believe it, Bruce Willis was not exactly the easiest guy to work with at the time. This gives him a lot of cachet going into the 2000s. And then it also helps someone like Toni Collette, who gets nominated for this movie, and Haley Joel Osment gets nominated for this movie. And Haley Joel Osment has a career because of this movie. He's still acting. I mean, he's not doing as much as he used to. Nothing like this. He's in Tusk, which is pretty good. He's pretty good in Tusk. I like
seeing him pop up and stuff these days. It's just so, he looks so different from when he was a child, and he
looks so different, but he doesn't, though.
Right? Yeah, his face. It's like his little face is still in there, but he usually plays a quirky side character, like so many child stars of that time end up doing. Maybe not side characters, but think of like Daniel Radcliffe, or who's the other one who just like made bank on franchise films and then just play a bunch of weird
Rupert Grint, the kid from Harry Potter?
No, not Rupert Grint. He's not the one I'm thinking of. But anyway, just people that don't have to necessarily, not that Haley Joel Osment wasn't a big franchise, but I'm sure he still gets money for Sixth Sense.
Well, I mean, he was also in Forrest Gump, which we will be talking about next year.
Yeah, very little dude in Forrest Gump.
That was his first movie. And then he's also in Pay It Forward. Remember that movie?
I never saw it, but I know what you're talking about.
He was also in AI.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater.
Country Bears.
He's pretty good in AI. I didn't like it the first time I saw it, but I watched it recently and was like, oh yeah,
Can't believe Tusk is 8 years old at this point.
I know. Also
Man.
saw that in the theater because I've seen a lot of his films in the theater.
I like Tusk a lot. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I know it is. Like, I ain't got no problem having an unpopular opinion about that movie.
It's pretty crazy. I don't think I've seen it since I watched it in the theater,
I
actually.
haven't seen it in a long time. I just remember Michael Parks is really good.
He is. I like Justin Long, so
Red State.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Those, you know,
Indeed.
those would be those interesting 3 movies of Kevin Smith's. I think it's interesting about this movie is Tak Fujimoto's cinematography really comes through. Speaking of directors and quality of the films that they're making, I really appreciate Tak Fujimoto's eye.
It reminds me, and I forget that he did this and he did Signs, but when I realize that and I look at the films, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of the same tones that I really love in Silence of the Lambs. He's got a thing for earth tones and filming stuff it's not dark, but it never feels like it's full daylight. And there's a lot of that in Silence of the Lambs. There's a lot of that in this. I mean, part of it obviously is the weather.
Right.
This is a very fall, and who knows if they even shot it in the fall, but it's very much a fall movie, which I
appreciate.
Yeah, and I always feel that way about Silence of the Lambs as well. And Signs isn't that so much, as much more bright sunlight in that film, but there's always oranges and browns and those kind of calming fall colors. And that seems to be, at least in the movies that I'm aware of that he shot, seems to be his color palette.
Yeah. Well, and that's, well, at least in this movie, I mean, the poster's even orange, right?
Yeah. It has that. I mean, I know part of it takes place around Halloween, but I love movies that make me feel like it's fall, because it doesn't feel like it's fall here right now. So
we're getting there.
It's 91 today, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, it's like in the 50s here today.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's pretty nice. I will. Thank you. I will enjoy it.
It's supposed to be 92 today.
Yikes.
Doesn't get down to the 70s until next week.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's been real fun.
And you know what else is crazy about this movie? This movie comes out in, I guess, what a lot of people would consider to be one of the best years in movies in the last, I guess, last 30 years?
Almost 30. Yeah. I mean, we're getting close. 92 was 30 years ago. So
yeah,
this is in the same decade as that.
99, man. Phantom Menace, The Matrix, Sixth Sense, Austin Powers. I mean, I'm missing so many already.
Blair Witch,
Wild Wild West, American Pie, Eyes Wide Shut. Oh my God. Like that. What a year. Those, actually.
Mystery, I don't know why we didn't go see this one. Saw most of those movies. Mystery
Men, Iron Giant. I mean, just like one after another. And it's like the entire year.
This was the one that did better as it went along as far as box office. I remember, surprised I didn't catch on to the twist before then, but I remember hearing like every weekend, instead of dropping, it was getting, the box office was going up because of the word of mouth thing. And this is, the internet was around. I didn't really have it. I don't think I had a personal computer at that time. Like when I met my wife, or who would become my wife, I always had to borrow either my sister's, or I was going to National University at the time, and I would go there and use the computer, but I was not constantly online. That's one of the reasons I told my daughter, I'm like, I miss this because of, there wasn't a Twitter to spoil it for me. And I wasn't sitting there at the computer 24 hours a day or on my phone. But I just remember it really ramped up. Like every weekend, it just did better and better. And that's all that people were talking about.
Well, it was the second highest grossing movie of 1999 in a year of those big movies like The Matrix.
Yeah, it was a big
Phantom
deal.
Menace, for fuck's sake. Like, Jesus,
it's a big
Christ. Deal. And it puts M. Night Shyamalan on the map.
Yeah. Firmly.
Not his first movie, but yeah, definitely puts him on the map. Again, revitalizes Bruce Willis's career. Bruce Willis would go on to work with M. Night again. But I think, this is like clearly the movie that, for me, is his best movie. Of all the things that I've seen of his, like, it's just, I get it now. I gave this movie a genuine emotional reaction. I don't do that with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I bet if I watch it again, I'll have the same reaction. You couldn't even talk about it. I couldn't even talk about it, frankly.
Yeah. And then to follow that up with, like I said, the scene between Bruce Willis and his wife is very touching as well. And yeah, it's I think it goes down to that, the humanness of it. Yes, it's a ghost story. Yes, it's genuinely creepy. The scenes of many of the ghosts that Cole encounters are played out like a horror movie, and they are effective in that way. That idea, though, of the premise of the film is that ghosts are here because they want somebody to help them. And, they tried it with that Vincent Gray character, the Donnie Wahlberg character. And, he didn't get the help he needed and didn't understand that as a child, that's all they wanted to do was talk or have someone listen to them. So it's an interesting take on the ghost story as well.
Yeah, we haven't really even talked about the horrorness of the movie.
They play out as hauntings in a way because they are frightening, especially to a young kid. The woman that he thinks is his mom in the kitchen, she's obviously been abused her whole life and probably got beaten to death by her husband.
Yeah.
And she's screaming not at him, but at her husband. That's horrifying. Or no, she kills herself. That's right. The kid that finds the dad's gun, all that stuff. The Misha Barton character, when we first encounter her, it's kind of the one jump scare in the movie, but it's
pretty
there's
effective
a reason.
Fucking jump scare.
Yeah, there's a reason that it's frightening because they're scared as well because they don't, know what's happening. They can't get out of this situation. And that whole thing with her character and being poisoned by her mom and stuff is
pretty gnarly, man.
Yeah.
I remembered something about that. Like I said, I never seen the movie before, but when I watched that scene, I was like, this isn't going where I think it's going. And then it's like, yeah, it's just fuck. This movie is brutal in a lot of ways. It is just
the worst thing about that is that shit happens.
Yeah, well, there's that. I mean, fuck, poisoning your kids. I mean, Jesus Christ.
For the attention.
That mom in Idaho who just killed her kids and buried them in the backyard of their property. It's awful. But again, it speaks to this human idea of suffering now, but does your soul suffer after the fact? And it's clearly in a lot of these cases it does, because you feel like you have unfinished business because you're taken before your time. And I think the thing that I appreciate about this movie the most is that the Vincent Gray character's entire story is tied into ghosts and him seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
And Bruce Willis dies because he doesn't help somebody else who sees ghosts. So he in turn becomes a ghost. Not a fitting punishment, but in a Twilight Zone episode, that's the thing. This is a Twilight Zone episode, really. But I think that's what works about it is when we talk about twist endings, we think about format styles like Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this works, but I think it takes a deft hand to make an hour-and-a-half long twist movie.
Right. I think like we've both said, it's earned. It becomes obvious once you've seen it at least once or have had it spoiled for you already, but it's done in such a way that, you may think about it even early on and then have it kind of reversed for you in the process, especially with, I think, him and his wife in the restaurant is the scene that sort of made me go oh no, they're just in a bad place, because she says happy anniversary in a sarcastic way. And you're thinking that, she's talking to him because he's there and she's just really hurt by him or devastated. Something has happened after his recovery because they're not in a good place.
I think the thing that I appreciate about this movie the most is that the twist is just the end of the movie. I think that also really works, and you don't see that often with twist movies. Normally there's a twist and it's in the third act.
Right.
But it's not the final scene.
Well, and I think that goes to what you said as to where it's not really, it doesn't matter to the story.
Yeah, I don't think it shouldn't.
It could have just been that she felt second place in his life. That's what this whole thing brought to her mind when he was shot by this kid that Bruce Willis couldn't help. She was second place. he's going to improve that. He's got to help a kid so he can feel okay about this. And he's got to work on his marriage. And it could have just been that. But having that additional thing where he's dead, it just adds to the humanness of the story. That there is no fixing this, really. She's alone now. She's devastated, not because she felt like she was second place. Well, there's probably still that, but that, the love of her life is gone.
And I think it works. I think it's sad. It's touching. It's a good scene. And even in the scene, they give you this moment of kind of doubt as to whether or not he's alive, where she starts responding to him and you're like, oh, okay. And that's like, no, he's just.
She's sensing it.
Plot contrivances, but it's fine. It works here.
It's a little
contrivey, but it's okay. It works in the scene because at the end of this, hour and 40-minute movie, it's earned. That is 100% earned. Even if it doesn't have any bearing on the story writ large, which it doesn't, because by the end of the film, Haley Joel Osment knows he's not going to see Bruce Willis again. Bruce Willis just doesn't know that. And that's, again, what I appreciate from this movie is that this movie understands the two stories that it's telling and understands how to end both of them satisfyingly. The way that Cole's story ends that's the only way this movie could have ended, is him and his mom having that conversation.
Right.
And then you could have ended the movie there. But the fact that they push it to the next level with that scene and really recontextualize the entire film, I think that's when a twist works the best, is when it not only reinforces how good the movie is while watching it before knowing the twist, but also in in subsequent rewatches, it recontextualizes the entire film, which it does. Like you said, every time Haley Joel Osment talks to Bruce Willis, he's literally trying to say without saying, "You're a ghost. You're dead."
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Bruce Willis can hear other ghosts on those tapes should have been a red flag, I guess.
That's
but I
true.
guess not, because
I
they
hadn't
say
really thought
ghosts
about
can't
that.
see each other.
Right. They can't, they don't notice each other. That's what Haley Joel Osment says.
Yeah. So I like this movie a lot. I'm glad I finally got around to watching it.
Yeah. It's a good one, man. It's a movie I actually own on DVD, so that tells you something.
But there's one other thing I want to talk about with this movie, and we're going to see it 2 more times, but here it's probably the least egregious. M. Night Shyamalan.
His cameo. I love his cameos.
Oh, Lord.
His cameos.
He is...
I think he's taking the Hitchcock route.
I think he's taking the Hitchcock route and then some.
Yeah, I love it. I love him.
I think it's a little much.
Him in these.
I think it's a little much because he just kind of gets in the way. Because it's like, I can't help but be like, that's M. M. Night is such a recognizable dude. I think.
Well, now he is, but think about it. At the time, no one had any fucking idea that was the director of the movie.
But one could say it hasn't aged well. Then,
yeah, sure. I like his cameos. I think they're all in these 3 movies. It's that I like who he's playing in them.
Sure.
This one, doesn't really have much of a bearing on the story, but particularly in Signs, it's
God,
this is the guy that.
Yeah, when we get to Signs, he's less. Yeah. I appreciate putting yourself in your movies. I'm glad it's not like Tarantino level. And yeah, M. Night is a decent actor, but the issue for me is it's just distracting that it's him. He's not a bad actor at all. Like he's fine, but it's just, I know who you are. And so it's a little distracting and funny. Like I can't help but laugh. I chuckle every time I see him. He just looks so out of place every time. It's just every time he looks out of place.
Hey, you got to have some diversity in your movies. I mean, he's
only one
Indian American making movies that's like 95% white casts.
I mean, it's not like they're Indian actors working in Hollywood or anything.
Right. I mean, he uses the one guy.
He's the one Indian actor working in Hollywood.
And he uses that one guy, the dude buying the ring, and this one is the same guy buying the comic art in Unbreakable. So he's got that guy on the on the payroll.
All right, so let's move on to M. Night Shyamalan's sophomore film, 2000's Unbreakable.
Hi, you're in the emergency room of the Philadelphia City Hospital. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Where were you sitting on the train?
Against the window.
In the passenger car?
Yes.
You're certain you were in the passenger car?
Yeah. Where are the other passengers?
Your train derailed. Took a curve too fast. A second train collided with yours after it derailed. The debris spread over 1 mile.
Why are you looking at me like that?
There are 2 reasons why I'm looking at you like this. 1, because it seems you are the only survivor of this train wreck. And 2, you don't have a scratch on you.
I know what's going through your mind right now. You're searching for meaning in all of this. Know one thing. 131 people died so you could finally understand the destiny for which you were born. Are you ready for the truth?
So once again, written and directed by our friend M. Night Shyamalan. This one stars Bruce Willis again. I mean, hey, that last movie made that much money. Why not?
Why stop a good thing, you know?
Yeah. It also stars Samuel L. Jackson, Robin Wright, and again, I think the other thing that I appreciate about our dear friend, Mr. M. Night Shyamalan, knows how to make the most with very little. Always a very small cast, always like 1 or 2 people, not, 1 or 2 big actors, and everybody else is just consistent character actors. But Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, stars of the show here, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And Bruce Willis plays a former football player / security guard who is in a car crash. Well, he is in a car crash, but he's also in a train accident where the train derails, and he is the sole survivor. Sole survivor being a key phrase in this movie. Samuel L. Jackson plays a comic book collector and dealer who has a brittle bone disease, aka from 30 Rock, bird bones.
Mr. Glass.
Yeah, Mr. Glass. It's M. Night gives it away at the beginning of the movie. I feel like that was my problem with this movie, is he gives away where he's going right at the start. He telegraphs where he's going. Like
it's the same
at
thing.
The top of it.
Yeah, it is very obvious once you have gotten through it. I mean, it may be, again, I probably missed that twist in this one, even though, already probably heard rumbling. This one actually we went and saw in the theater, but going in thinking, okay, what's the twist? What's the twist? Is Bruce Willis dead the whole time? Like he was in the set? It's possible because, train derailed. He's the only survivor, or what? And yeah, all the talk of villains and the just comic book lore and tropes.
But it takes a while to get there to that.
Him being in purple practically the whole movie, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I think I was still a little surprised by the full magnitude of the twist.
Sure.
But I watched this yesterday with my daughter, and I was realizing while I was watching it, oh yeah, I fucking watched this movie a ton. I bought this Vista Series special edition DVD when it came out.
Sure.
And watched all the extras, because when we were watching, I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't he talk to the reverend after the funeral, the mass funeral that he goes to? And I'm like, oh no, that's a deleted scene. So I watched all the deleted scenes multiple times and thought, yeah, this was a big deal. I think at the time I liked it even more. I definitely watched it more than The Sixth Sense. And I think it was because once we get to the end of the film and realize what's going on, I was like, oh, this is a fucking origin story. And this is pre, MCU.
This is 2000. This is pre-2001. This is pre-Spider-Man.
Yeah, this is pre-MCU,
everything.
Pre the inklings of an MCU, like you say, with Spider-Man, those individual films that came out like Hulk, Spider-Man, and then on down the road with Iron Man, before that was all going to be what it is now. And because before that, superhero movies were kind of cheesy, kind of lame.
Oh, that's that Captain America movie from the 90s with Ronnie Cox. What are you talking about? The fake ears? They're great.
Think about, they were treated as Saturday morning cartoons. Nothing was taken very seriously about superheroes.
Right.
And I was really taken with that idea, like, oh, this is an origin story for a superhero that has no ties to DC or Marvel or any of the small companies, whatever. I was like, that's a really interesting idea to me. A normal person who goes on this path of discovery, helped along by his arch nemesis, to figure out that, okay, there's something special about me. And I don't know, it caught my attention really strong. And I just realized watching it the other day, oh shit, I watched this movie a ton.
Right.
Back after I bought this DVD. So in the early 2000s, I probably watched it a couple times a year, maybe even more. And I still really like it. I hadn't watched it in a good while. And I was like, this is still, sophomore slump, maybe a little bit. It's sort of dour and
pretty bleak. Dour. Yeah, it's pretty bleak.
It doesn't.
But I think this story has to be like the story that they're telling here has to be, because it's an origin story. And in so many characters like David Dunn, the origin story is not positive. It has to be negative. It has to have some sort of a loss to gain something. You have to give something up to gain something. David Dunn does it twice effectively in his life, but yeah, I it's like the first Spider-Man movie has Uncle Ben dying, a year later. Like, you have to have this, the heroes always have to give something up to get something.
Yeah.
And in this, not really.
Well, give up.
Not really. Like, give up your football career, but like seemed pretty easy to do.
Would he have been happier with their marriage? The implication is that they wouldn't have gotten married if he had continued with football.
Right.
But they're not in a good place. And this is a thing that runs through these first three movies. This, I don't want to say dysfunctional family, but these broken families.
Right.
In The Sixth Sense, it's both families. The single mom, dad is gone, and the relationship between Bruce Willis and Olivia Williams is, as far as we know, up until the twist, is broken in some way. And in this, that was the thing that really threw me about this movie when I watched it, is their relationship, him and Robin Wright, or Robin Wright Penn, as she's credited in this film.
That's fair.
And how that's the dour part for me, is their relationship. And just that when they go to the hospital after he's released and the son puts their hands together, and then like 2 seconds later, they've dropped each other's hands. It's like, oh, they're not in a good place. This is going to be a bummer. And it is. It's a bummer. That strained relationship of theirs gives this movie that dour and bleak tone. It's not the rest of it. It's not the destruction and all that stuff that's going on, all these mass tragedies that happen in the film. It's their fucking marriage, man. It's a downer. It brings me down, man.
It is. Yeah. I think my issue with this movie is it gets a little wrapped up in its own mythology a little too easily of what it's trying to create, because Bruce Willis's character has superhuman strength, but he also sees the crimes of people he touches, which seems like the Deus Ex Machina in The Machine. And I feel like that's maybe the step too far in this movie, is being able to touch people and see their crimes. Like, that feels like that exists to give us the twist at the end of the movie, doesn't it?
Yeah,
now I'll have you shake my hand. Like, when he said that, I was like, okay, right. Of course, this whole, right. This was what this all building to, was him touching his hand to see what he did. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, the superhuman strength definitely on its own could be enough. But then it's like, well, what do you do with that? How does he, I think it becomes just that super, like, walk around the streets and try and find danger or whatever. It is a bit of a cop out to have him be able to sense it and then do something about it instead of just stumbling upon things like Spider-Man does by swinging through New York City.
It's like he's Superman meets Spider-Man.
It's Spidey senses and
But
yeah.
even Spider-Man can't just touch someone and know their crimes. Like that's you know what that is? That's like the dead zone.
I mean, Spider-Man gets, a sense.
Right.
That
But he doesn't
up.
touch someone's,
Right,
he doesn't touch Mary Jane's arm or touch Doc Ock's arm and go, oh my God, I know your crimes. Like that. For me, it felt like they never justified why he had it outside of that scene at the end of the movie where Samuel Jackson's now shake my hand. Like, oh my God, movie. The twist in this movie doesn't work because it's like, so what? This twist feels like a so what twist. Like, so what if he did all this stuff? It should be pretty obvious this dude's nuts anyways. Like, I mean, yeah, it further reinforces that, oh, he's actually a bad guy. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. The twist is just kind of tenuous at best. Like he was a mastermind this whole time. Like
it's sort of the same idea as The Sixth Sense, where the twist is to help. I mean, Elijah says, now that we know who you are, I know who I am.
As if you didn't have to know already by
like
blowing
they're helping
shit up,
each other out again, kind of scenario.
It doesn't recontextualize the film for me at all. It just makes me go, okay, so those three things that were mentioned, you did them.
Yeah. And possibly numerous other things. I don't know if we're supposed to imply that.
Oh my God. That's
all of the clippings on his
He's been just committing murders for years now.
But I don't think it is, because a lot of them are around the world. I don't think he's traveling to Mexico to create a mudslide and things like that. But
wouldn't it have made more sense if like him and Samuel L. Jackson and David Dunn had just been born, or Bruce Willis had been born on the same day, and he was looking for him as like, oh, if you were like someone born at the same day, the same minute as me, right? Like then it's like, okay, well, if there are people like me in the world, like Samuel L. Jackson who have brittle bone disease, there must be people like Bruce Willis that are uncharacteristically strong and
that can't be hurt.
Right. Like
he can be hurt very easily. He can't be hurt at all.
Right. Why was that not part of it? Because then it makes more sense. Then you have something to kind of be like, okay, they're fated to be doing this. They're tied together cosmically. No, it's just like, oh, he just happened to be in Philadelphia. Like if it had been that kind of direction, it would have also been able to justify why in Philadelphia. Oh, you were born in Philadelphia. He was born in Philadelphia. There you go.
Well, that's the issue with high concept, like we got into with the Jordan Peele thing. Once you start peeling back the layers, it falls apart.
This is very much us in a lot of ways, because all of a sudden it falls underneath the premise right at the end. It's like, oh, now he's just able to do everything. He's going and making trains crash and causing planes to hit buildings and causing buildings to catch on fire. Like,
yeah. And luckily for him, like you say, they live in the same part of the, maybe not in the same city, but very close.
Another question. Are we also led to believe that at no point in the movie, Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson touched one another?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that bears out.
Was Bruce Willis touching people in the movie and feeling that he could sense them before the car crash, before the train crash? Like, I don't.
Yeah,
it's never explained.
It's one of those things where I always took it as this is something that he never really paid attention to. That was more just like a feeling. And once Samuel L. Jackson and that guy with the camouflage coat, he sort of spurs Dunn on to pay more attention to that as not just a feeling, but, hone your skills type of thing.
Right.
And so, then we start to get the images, the various images of bad things. That's when M. Night Shyamalan shows up again, playing the supposed drug dealer. And I don't know. I like those flashes. I like how they're done. And then I don't think Fujimoto did this one. I believe it's another cinematographer, but
Eduardo Serra.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you start pulling at the threads, the sweater is going to unwind. Your house of cards are going to fall. But it's still, I think for me now, I probably wouldn't even consider watching this as much as I did back then. I think I watched it too many times, to be honest with you. But yeah, the like you said, the twist doesn't change the story because they meet so late in life and his accident, the things that have shaped Dunn's life have already happened. There's really no, what does it matter whether he played football or not? Things like that. Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, I guess it does sort of get him and his wife back together, but I don't know to what end.
Well, and that for me, I think is my issue with this story is just to what end does any of this matter? Like at the end of the movie, Samuel L. Jackson's in jail. Bruce Willis has now killed someone, saved a family, but killed someone. So he is a hero now. And then, you know, there is a universe where we have nothing else to talk about. You know what I mean? There is a universe where Split never came out and Glass never came out. And M. Night never got to make those movies. But you know what? I think Split is a better movie than this movie. If we're talking about an origin story for a villain, Split is a better movie. And Split, the character of the Horde, was going to be in this movie. And what did they do? They cut him out. Why? Because he was too good of a character to not have his own movie. I didn't see Glass. I know why I didn't see Glass, because I heard it was awful.
Yeah,
it's not even good. Questionably, like, oh, I enjoyed it. Like I heard overwhelmingly, it's not good. Don't go watch it. It's actively bad.
I watched it once. I don't know if I would go that far, but it was nothing like Split. There
Split's
were a
amazing.
lot of questionable choices in Glass. I mean, if you want to talk about suspending disbelief, that's pretty much what you have to do through the whole movie in Glass. Yeah, Split was good. And it didn't need that connection to this universe because it just led to Glass, and that was just kind of crapped out the story, you know?
Well, and I think that's the issue is to talk about Unbreakable without talking about Split and Glass is almost unfair to Unbreakable because at least Glass, from everything I've heard, diminishes the quality of Unbreakable. And, you know, Tarantino said that this was one of the top 20 films released since 1992. So he's not wrong. He's a smart filmmaker. I mean, this is a good movie. I don't particularly find this superhero universe that he's concocting particularly interesting. Like, I do, because you're effectively saying like Jeffrey Dahmer or John Wayne Gacy is a supervillain. That's effectively what they're saying, right? Like serial killers are supervillains in this universe.
Well,
which is interesting. Like,
I mean, if you're tying in Split with that, maybe.
Well, I'm tying in Split because Split's part of this.
But as far as
Split is taking place, I mean, Unbreakable, M. Night himself said that the character from Split is in this movie, is Unbreakable. And they mention it in Glass, right? Like, doesn't something in Unbreakable have to do with that kid's dad? You know, James McAvoy's character, something. I remember reading something like
there is some tie-in, I think. Oh,
was his dad on the train?
Yeah, it's the train.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which James McAvoy's dad
tenuous at best. I mean, that's
easy.
That's an easy connection to make because everybody fucking died on that. So
right.
There could be all kinds of connections. I mean, there's, I think, what do they say? Close to 200 people or 131 or something die on that.
Yeah,
on that train and died.
It's a lot of people.
So you've got all kinds of 131 potential connections to make to him.
Just one of them happens to be a serial killer, super villain, creature, monster, whatever the hell James McAvoy is in that movie.
Yeah.
I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, Split's good. I liked it too. That was back on the way up. That was after the visit.
Yeah, it was way on the way back up.
It's got Anya Taylor-Joy in it, who I always love in movies.
Not to be confused with Florence Pugh. I always get them confused.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No,
just because they were both coming up at the same time in horror movies. And then the chick from It Follows. She's the other third one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The one whose name I don't know.
Micah Monroe.
But
yeah, she's good and stuff. She's always good.
I like Anya
Taylor-Joy is always good.
She's the best of the three, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's great. She actually made me like The Witch. I liked The Witch because of her performance. And I didn't like it the first 2 times I watched it.
She's another one like Haley Joel Osment who has that uncanny, naturalistic acting style where you buy her very easily in whatever role she's playing. And I think Micah Monroe actually has that as well. Florence Pugh, not so much.
I don't think Florence Pugh is going to be in another horror movie.
But I definitely haven't seen as much of her in films. Yeah. I can only think of a couple.
Anna Taylor-Joy's really good in Split, though.
Yeah, she's very good in Split.
I mean, Split's just a good movie. Split is more like this than anything else. It's similar, like, and there's a reason M. Night said, "Oh, this is a spiritual sequel to Unbreakable." It's like, no, it's actually a sequel. It's an actual fucking sequel when you put Bruce Willis. I remember. Did you see Split in the theaters?
No.
I didn't. I remember sitting and seeing that thing at the end and being like, what? Because I'd never seen Unbreakable. I just knew. I mean, I knew, obviously.
Right.
Because we did a podcast on it. I mean, that's how long it's since the podcasting, since that movie came out. And I remember just being like, what? Really? Like, okay. I think we said something on the podcast to the effect of like, well, I hope they stick the landing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had pretty high hopes, probably because I sort of remembered really liking Unbreakable and watching it a ton and thinking, oh, okay, so we're going to, I guess, bring everybody back. But isn't he in an insane asylum?
Well, at least they said it in this insane asylum.
Yeah, for the most. The one thing that sticks out to me about Glass is Sarah Paulson, and that I just couldn't stand her.
I was about to say, is there a time and a place to talk about Sarah Paulson's proliferation into things, maybe unnecessarily? I mean, she's good, don't get me wrong, but like there was a time where she was in like everything. And
yeah, and this isn't even by Ryan Murphy, but she's in it. So
but this was around that time where she was like in everything.
Yeah.
And she's
great too.
Yeah, Sarah Paulson's good, but just not. I think Sarah Paulson is good in certain things. I'm not sure. Like, she's good in a lot of the things I've seen her in, but then she's in Glass, from which I've heard she is actively not good in.
It's not only that she's not good in it, the character is just absolutely annoying as all get out. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. I mean, I need to see it again. Actually, I want to watch Split again before I watch Glass again. But
same. I want to rewatch Split. I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I remember, like I said, really enjoying it.
I do too.
And that movie does have a twist ending. That movie totally has a twist ending, and it kind of works.
I mean, The Visit has a twist ending. The Happening has a twist ending.
Yeah.
I don't think that label is affixed to Shyamalan incorrectly. Old has a twist ending.
Avatar Last Airbender doesn't.
Yeah, and The Lady in the Water doesn't either. And I was hoping for a twist because that fucking movie just absolutely made no sense to me. I'll watch just about everything. I have never seen The Last Airbender because I don't have an interest in that.
It's really bad.
Or wasn't there another sci-fi one he did?
After Earth with Will Smith and his son. Boy. No. In 2022, doesn't that sound like something you want to be watching? Will Smith, outcast of his own creation, and his son, obnoxious human being of their own creation. I'm good. I'm real good.
Yeah, I just didn't have any interest in those, but I'll watch pretty much any of the genre films, the horror films.
I mean, that's what he's good at, right? He's good at making a decent genre film.
I mean, my daughter and I watched The Happening. I'm like, we might as well watch this one because it's wacky.
What? No.
But the opening of that movie, man, is fucking solid. It's so creepy. He knows what he's doing. And my wife and I watch and love Servant. That show is just wild.
Rupert Grint, right?
Yeah, he's absolutely horrible in it. But Rupert
Grint's not a great actor, though.
No, and it's very apparent in this, and his accent, his American accent, is just awful. But it's kind of fun.
Does he say a lot of hard R's?
It's very mannered, like his later films become. That very mannered acting and line delivery and dialogue. But for some reason in this world where you're not quite sure what's going on at any given time, it really works. I mean, it even works for me in The Happening in a way where that odd acting and dialogue sort of enhance my enjoyment of the film.
Remember when M. Night Shyamalan was going to do Tales from the Crypt?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was involved with the reboot, but the Gaines family wouldn't give him access to use the Crypt Keeper. Oh my God. I mean, what a show for him to work on. What a show for him to be involved with. Like the twist ending show, right?
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. I mean, again, like it's funny because Unbreakable and Signs definitely have twist ending, or Unbreakable and The Sixth Sense definitely have twist endings. Signs doesn't.
Not really, no. I do want to say though, in the when I watched Unbreakable this time, I really noticed that Shyamalan pulled out a lot more directorial tricks. There's a lot of interesting shots. The camera's moving a lot more. I just always remember that shot in the hospital when they're talking to David Dunn, asking him questions about where he was sitting on the train and all that. And there's a body like laying right in front of the camera. And so it's out of focus, but you're watching that the whole time while he's talking. Then all of a sudden, slowly blood appears. And I was like, oh yeah, he's getting a little bit more stylistic in this one. And I appreciate that in the movie.
We're about to head to Style Land, baby. We're heading to Style Land for the climax of this movie. My God.
Well, like
do we
you
have
said
to
earlier,
talk about signs?
It's all setup and payoffs in this one.
Signs everywhere. There's signs. Yeah. So let's talk. Let's bring this episode home with a lively chat about 2002's Signs.
Can make geometric shapes the size of a football field.
What kind of machine can bend a stalk of corn or a break?
Can't be by hand, it's too perfect.
So the aliens can't read our minds.
Oh.
Some animals around the county have been acting funny. Some of them violent. It's almost like they act when they smell a predator around.
Amman, Nairobi, Bangalore, and Jerusalem as the
same shows on every station.
Every station?
It is the 18th reported crop site in that country in the last 72 hours.
I'm a little scared. All this stuff on TV. Joe Gills was in here talking about the end of the world.
They're staying in the shadows. It's called probing, to make sure things are all clear.
Clear for what?
For the rest of them.
There's a monster outside my room. Can I have a glass of water?
Ground forces are being assembled.
What's happening? Don't be afraid. It's like War of the Worlds. Believe it's going to pass. Don't be afraid.
They're in the house.
Here it comes. Don't be afraid.
So once again, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. This time he also produced it along with Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall. They know a good thing when they see it, right? Maybe.
Hey, man, they paid him $5 million to write this script. Highest paid screenwriter up to that point because of Sixth Sense and Unbreakable.
So this movie stars everyone's favorite Australian actor, Mel Gibson. Also, Joaquin Phoenix, right? Just out of the gate, the people that we're mentioning, at least the two main leads. Yeah, Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix are our leads. Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin play their kids. Mel Gibson's kids. He's a Episcopalian priest who lost his faith after M. Night Shyamalan played God in his own movie and killed
his wife.
And after that happens, he loses his faith. And then sometime later, out in the diddle dick of Pennsylvania, aliens show up and start to harass him, his family, and the world at large. Oh, and by the way, his brother is a former baseball player. That will come into play at the end of this movie.
Swing away, Meryl.
Oh, I swear to God.
Swing away.
So you know what? I get to start this one off this time. I saw this movie in the living room of my parents' house when I was 12 or 13. And I remember not having much of an opinion because I saw it that one time once. But you know what? I have seen a lot because I really like this one and the first one and the third one because I've never seen the second one. Scary Movie 3 parodies this movie and The Ring almost exclusively. Scary Movie 3 is my favorite scary movie.
The pictures of the big hat, isn't that what that's from? The Cherry Jones character in this, the local sheriff or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what that actress's name is, but she's on the new iteration of Law and Order. But she was on The Practice. And
I always think she's actually in this movie. because I've seen Scary Movie 3 so many times.
And then her hat keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Leslie Nielsen is in Scary Movie 3, which is the only Scary Movie that he's in. I want to say, it also has Simon Rex, who is hilarious. It's actually, I know that those movies get a bad rap. I know that those movies have diminishing returns, but Scary Movie 3 is also has Kevin Hart in it, which is like Kevin Hart soul playing Kevin Hart. So like not a big deal, but obviously, I mean, big deal now. So I know the plot of this movie through something else, which is the second time that this has happened this year. It happened earlier this year when we were talking about Lethal Weapon. And I knew the plot of Lethal Weapon primarily through National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because, again, I hadn't seen Signs in so long that I forgot almost all of the beats. I think except for I remember the climax of this movie. I don't know why so vividly. I'm shocked at how kind of haphazardly put together the script is, because M. Night loses the subtlety and the craftsmanship that came into the first two movies that he did in place of, it is the literal dumbest way to write half of this stuff. It's not given any subtlety or any sort of easing into any of this. It's just like, swing away, Meryl, because you played baseball, and that what? It's the way M. Night gets to the conclusions and the plot points and the plot beats that he does are so dinky at best. And yeah, this is set up and pay off the movie. And it's like, he tells you everything that's going to happen. It's like, what is the fun in this movie? I don't get it. Like, what, there's like one or two decent scares with the aliens. Is everybody remembering this movie more fondly than it actually is? Cause I don't know. I don't get this movie, I guess.
I still really enjoy this one.
Oh.
I saw it in the theater on the strength of Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. And it's the one that my daughter asked. I told her, I said, I need to watch all the M. Night Shyamalan, or the first three again. And we've watched them all recently. I said, which one do you want to watch with me? And she said, the Alien one. I'm like, all right. So we watched it yesterday afternoon after Unbreakable, which she hadn't seen. So anyway.
I like that this is the Alien one.
Yeah. I told, again, and we talked about this on one of the episodes she did with me. And I said, I think this is where I first started to notice that mannered acting and strange dialogue. It's not as apparent in this as it would be in the Happening, Old, and some of the other films where people don't really act like people really act. But it sort of goes back to Unbreakable and The Sixth Sense. There's always this. It seems like he wants to approach human interaction the way it actually happens, which is sometimes awkward and weird.
Right.
That one thing we didn't talk about in Unbreakable is that scene where, his son has kind of figured out that his dad is special along with him. And they have a gun in the house, and the kid pulls the gun on Bruce Willis and it's like, look, I'll prove it. I'll shoot you and you'll be okay. That interaction.
I forgot about that scene.
Is bizarre. It's like, it's kind of realistic, but not really. He talks to his son like he's 3 years old, and he's not. He's like 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. It has this weird disconnect in some way where they're or he really thinks that this is how real people would react to this situation of having a gun pulled on him. But it doesn't quite work. And that's what I see in this. There's a lot of the dialogue and interaction is striving for that genuineness, and it's missing the mark. And then, in later films, it's just really overly mannered and stuff. But I still really enjoy this one. It's definitely the clunkiest of these first three, but it has that human element to it where we're with this family and our concern is with them and how are they going to figure. They're getting news from the outside world, but they're isolated and on their own. We once again have the broken family, not by choice. Obviously, his wife is killed, but then that puts a strain on the rest of the family because he doesn't have his faith anymore, but the rest of them still do, or at least the kids do. And that causes problems between him and his children. His brother has always looked up to him, and now he can't or doesn't because of this. And that has put a strain on their relationship. So you get that deep human interaction, but it always has to be caused by outside forces. Something has caused this family to break down. And I think he gets away from that finally after this, where we don't have to have a broken family to be the trauma of the film. You know, we have so many horror films these days that are all about trauma. And I think you could run a through line with these that way. But I don't know. I still find it pretty fun. But you do have Chekhov's water glasses. You've got Chekhov's baseball bat and Chekhov's this and that and the other thing, where everything is set up.
Chekhov's M. Night Shyamalan.
Chekhov's M. Night.
Knife. Chekhov's two fingers. Chekhov's baby monitor.
Have you ever seen Don't Breathe? The first one?
Yeah.
When they break into that house, they linger. There are shots that linger on everything that's going to be utilized in the film, you know, as weapons or as whatever, right. like specific, like, oh, I'm going to sit here for 5 seconds so that you notice this hammer. And then the hammer comes into play later on. It's sort of like that.
No, it's worse than that, because this is like weird things. This is not just like a thing that's why I say this movie is so hinky, dude. Because like it's so dumb. I just can't fathom. I don't want to drink water. And the water glass thing, it's so specific and just nonsensical to the point where it's like you're doing this so that at some point in the movie, a water glass knocks over. This is Rube Goldberg by way of M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Right? It's an M. Night Shyamalan machine. Like, it's what it feels like. These kinds of movies, like Sixth Sense, not like Unbreakable, but like Sixth Sense, put the cogs in and then turn it on at the right time. But you're not worried about the cogs being put in because you're focusing on something else. This is like punching you in the face every time. She doesn't drink water. He played baseball. It's like, come on, movie. Why be this overt when we know you don't have to be, when we know you don't need to be, when we know that the last two movies have been, at least the first one, was so subtle that so many people didn't even realize it. Like, Jesus Christ, you're a seasoned movie watcher. It caught you. You know what I mean? Like, if you can do that with people, why be this overt if you've already proved you don't have to? Because you got paid $5 million. Is that what it is? Like,
I think if you miss that the water glasses are going to come into play at some point, I'm pretty sure in this one I didn't miss that, or the baseball bat, or the baseball. They don't really show the bat, but they are constantly talking about his prowess as a hitter.
Oh, and the kid's asthma, Chekhov's asthma too.
Yeah, Chekhov's asthma.
That's the one. That's the one that's just like such. Oh, when they're like, they spray poison gas the 5 minutes before it happens. That's the other. Oh, dear Jesus! You want to know the thing in this movie that irks the ever loving shit out of me? All right, we'll play the scene out. You and I just had a character interaction. I went to sleep. All right, I'm going to wake up now. Now you're going to tell me the rest of the movie happening off screen. Oh, the aliens left. They don't like this. They don't like that. This, that. That's like, he gives him like 5 minutes of exposition. Mel Gibson's like, so they left? What? Everything is told off screen in the third act. Is this a visual medium? I don't understand. I don't understand at this point. Why not just show it? Like, I get that the scope of this story is what it is. But you told, not showed so hard that like one of the things that your character says comes into play in the plot of the actual character interactions coming up pretty soon in the next scene. And it's just, this is the first time we've heard about the gas thing, and it's in Joaquin just exposition dumping onto Mel Gibson. Is that not just such a strange scene?
Yeah.
Or a strange way of doing it, I guess, is a better way of putting it.
Like I said, it's a lot clunkier than
very clunky.
Why that's secondhand information as opposed to them all hearing it on the news at some point. Why? I mean, that book that Rory Culkin buys in town, again, everything that he reads
is right. It's so convenient and just like
it's contrived. It's a lot more contrived.
You saw Stranger Things, right? The latest season.
Yeah.
You remember how Dustin was saying that thing about the villain that wasn't true? How often do they do that? Like in a lot of these stories, that is the screenwriter, or in this case, the filmmaker's way of telling you that's what's going on without telling you. Like there's if in the narrative there's no other rules that they're dictating other than the rules that they heard from some book or some other thing found in the narrative, that's the rules. Even if they never overtly say it. And I don't understand why everyone can't just agree that that's what's going on. And it's better to sometimes subvert those expectations than constantly say, well, you know, we don't know about the ark, but it might be a way to talk to God. And if we open it, we may get the power to talk to God. And then they open it, and what happens? Fucking roasts them alive. That's subverting the expectations because the filmmakers told you one thing it's going to be, and then it ends up being something else.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always have to just tell us what it's going to be and then also show us that it is that. Like, you don't have to.
Yeah. The plot points are telegraphed well in advance in this one. And maybe that was to avoid the all I do is twists moniker. There's no twist. Everything that Rory Culkin reads, everything they hear on the news, the information that the M. Night Shyamalan character gives him bears out. Oh, I heard that they don't like water, so I'm going to the lake. And they could have very well done the same thing, and they choose not to, or they vote not to, I should say. I really enjoy this one because it's mainly because of the kids. I really like Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin in this. It's one of the few times that I can handle Joaquin Phoenix. I think he plays an enjoyable character to watch. He's not some brooding asshole, which he seems to be playing a lot of lately. Regardless of what he is like as a person, I mean, just as far as characters go.
Seems like a unique dude. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Hey, there used to be a lot of those people in Hollywood. There seem to be a lot less of them now, but he's in the vein of a lot of actors of days gone past. It's like him and Leto. Like a lot of those dudes are just like weirdos, but there were like Brando and Nicholson were weirdos. Like, you know, it's okay. I mean, it's okay, you know.
Yeah. My issue with him is, and he's probably a very introverted person in real life, doesn't like giving interviews, which I totally understand, then don't give them. Because every time he goes on a show or does interviews, he acts like an asshole. And it's if it's a defense mechanism, whatever, then don't fucking give them. Have that in your contract that you don't do interviews. I think
Jonah Hill is. So
yeah,
Jonah
his
Hill
cachet is large enough. I mean, good grief. The Joker, you know, even prior to
he won an Oscar
Joker,
for that movie.
Prior to the Joker, even.
Oh, yeah.
He can write that in. I'm not going to do publicity for this film. Me being in the film is enough. And if, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are willing to work with him under those circumstances. So just fucking stop giving interviews if you are going to be an asshole every single time.
Right.
That's my issue with him.
It sours me on him when he does that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm with you. But this is like early enough where I like him, though.
Yeah. I like him when he plays enjoyable characters. We talked about him briefly, I don't know, and maybe in regard to My Own Private Idaho or something, but him as a kid, like in Parenthood and early roles and stuff, he was enjoyable to watch.
Have you seen Her? Spike Jonze movie?
I haven't seen it. I've seen bits
really
and pieces
good. And he's really good in it.
Yeah, I don't know why we haven't watched it, to be honest with you. It's not because I don't want to, because of him.
It's a
just
really
haven't for some reason gotten around to that one.
Because of him.
But like even Inherent Vice, which I don't care that much for as a film, he's pretty fun in that. He's goofy and weird, but not the weird, angry incel type of character.
Oh, it's so popular. We're getting a sequel.
And even in that, what is that one movie? You Were Never Really, no, what is it called?
Oh, the one where you're talking about the one about the Andy Kaufman thing he was doing?
No. He plays, I think he's trying to find his daughter.
Oh, it came out last year, the year before?
Lynn Ramsey movie. Fucking rough. But I mean, I liked him in that. He's not somebody that I will never watch his movies because I think he's a jerk in real life. I don't normally do that. There's maybe a few people avoid because of that. But anyway, the whole point was he's nice in this movie. He's an enjoyable character, a little bit quirky. It's nice that he's there helping out his brother. His motivations for being there are positive.
They're pretty pure.
And he's having a positive impact on his nephew and niece. And so it's just a nice character.
And he has the best scene in the movie.
Move,
children. Vamonos. It's the best scene in the movie, is it not? It's a scene that stuck with me all these years later.
It's the one that gets shown when you talk about this movie. I think
it's a great scene. That and the scene with the hand in the grate in the basement is that's a good one. That's
the one that gets my daughter.
There are some good scares in this movie. Like this is, The Sixth Sense is a horror movie, and this movie I think trades in that. I guess it is a horror movie. Sure, I guess if we're gonna call it something, if we have to nail things down with the genre, I guess it's a horror movie, but it's not doing the things that you would expect this kind of movie to do. Even Nope does more of the things. There aren't the kinds of scares you would expect. There aren't the kind of plot beats that you would expect. This is a subdued, for as weird as this movie is, it's also a very subdued movie.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of nothing happens for a very long time in this movie.
And it's kind of a downer
clickety
again.
Clacking noises and weird things. And look, a crop circle. Like crop circles on their own are not really scary. You have to, it's interesting how subdued this is, given how not subdued at least Unbreakable is.
And it takes its time, like the other films. And we're talking about an hour and 46 minutes, right around that same amount of time. So you have you don't have to cram everything in all at once. They have some experiences before everything is revealed. They've got, like you say, the crop circle. And then I think the next thing they encounter is the creature on top of the barn. And then that leads to not so much scares. It's sort of comical, them running around the house, and Mel Gibson, who can't curse or doesn't know how to curse, saying his yelling his strange dialogue. And then it's slowly, as they're discovering things, then they're finding out what's going on in the rest of the world at the same time. And then that all sort of intersects when they're down in the basement. And that great thing is a good scare.
Yeah.
That's the one that creeped my daughter out.
Well thought out. It allows you it shows it to you twice too, which I really appreciate. It's so well thought out that they do say at one point that they can change the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate that they say it. And I feel like that's one of the few things in the movie that he gets right. That it plays into the finale in a way that you forget. Because that's when these set up and payoffs. It's you set it up, but then you give it enough time where the audience kind of forgets that you set it up. But yeah, that hand on the grate that's a good one. That's a real good one.
The hand under the door, that red door, that's like a typical horror movie image. It might not be as scary as the grate, but the fingers and claws coming up under the door are as a startling image. And the whole encounter in the vet's pantry, when he chops the fingers off, it's got a nice little jump to it.
What's M. Night doing in this movie?
Hey man, he's the vet. I finally realized.
Speaking of the vet.
Yeah. I'm like, why aren't they taking the dog to the vet? And then I'm like, oh, well, he's the vet. So he's the guy that kills Mel Gibson's wife in the film.
Doesn't just kill her though. This is where the movie gets a little strange. It kind of takes a weird turn right in the climax, which we haven't talked about yet. Mel Gibson has kind of been having these flashbacks throughout the film of the night that his wife died, and they're playing out piecemeal. So we're kind of seeing it, and then we're seeing a little bit more, and then we're seeing a little bit more, and then we're seeing further and further into the scene. Fine. I'm not a fan of that.
Oh, really? I like it.
I'm not a fan of it because it's always used like this, where it's like, and then at the end, it's like something changes everything. It's not that it's never landed, but it's like 9.5 times out of 10, it's not. And it's the bad ones that you remember, and the good ones, it doesn't even matter that there's a twist in them. That's how good the twists are. But his wife gets pinned to a tree, essentially cut in half, but she's alive enough to talk to him before she dies.
Yeah, it's like, once they back the truck up, her insides are going to spill out and she'll be dead. So it's.
This is so how real life works.
Well, I mean,
I cannot watch the scene without thinking of the Scary Movie 3 scene where he goes, which half of her doesn't work anymore. The top half or the bottom half. And she's like, I don't understand. And so she takes like a hot dog and like snaps it in half. And he's like, you mean she broke her wiener? Like, I can't, like, it's so goofy. Even in the serious version of the movie, it's kind of goofy. It's kind of, again, it's kind of hinky.
Odd
like
premise.
This is how you got here. Like, you had to jump through 8 million hoops when there was just like one thing to just clear over here. I don't know.
I don't know.
You can see where I'm coming from, right? It's so weird. It's in Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. It were things that like, oh, he's wearing that poncho. It's kind of like a cape. Okay, it makes sense. Oh, he's got the bird bone thing, so he assumes that somebody else must be unbreakable. Yeah, makes sense. Sure. In this movie, it's like she doesn't drink full glasses of water, and wouldn't you know it, the aliens don't. It's like, why does she not have to drink glasses of water? Like, why does that? You could just have them find out or knock the alien into a pool or into a water tank. Like, you're on a goddamn farm. There are easier, less idiosyncratic ways to get to the conclusions of this movie. And instead of it being kind of straightforward, it's like, no, we're going to have this as complicated as humanly possible.
See, I like the quirks, though, I guess. I don't have a problem.
Fine.
It made me laugh yesterday as we were watching it because it's like, why don't you at least, that's a lot of glasses. Like, you're going to run out of glasses if you haven't already. Go dump some of these out. I mean, he picks up a couple to take into the kitchen and then he puts them back where they were. And I'm like, well, her thing isn't that she needs them around for comfort. It's just she never finishes a glass of water because it's contaminated or has dust in it or has a hair in it or tastes weird or tastes old, blah, blah, blah.
And then wouldn't you know it that those contaminated water kills the alien?
But I'm like, you have to put these in the sink. People are going to need glasses for their other drinks.
Real people don't exist in M. Night Shyamalan movies after a certain point. Like, well, for as humanistic as Sixth Sense is, this is like, these are, honestly, you know what I said when I was watching this movie? Are these, the twist should have been that these people were robots. Like, because they act so fucking weird.
That's the thing. That's the thing that it ends up.
Should have been robots. Like, why wasn't that the twist? I don't get it.
Happening. It's like, none of these people act like real people. They don't talk like real people. They don't act like real people. And that's what has continued. I mean, old, God, it's like no one is a human being in that movie. It's bizarre, but it's bizarre for me in an interesting way. I like Old. I will watch Old again. No one acts like a normal human being in that movie, but I know I'll watch it again because it's interesting. It's fun to watch. And I can understand people being like, nope, I'm done with his movies. I can't watch these. They're too weird. And I think it starts here. I need to watch The Village again because I don't know how much of that bears out in that. I know there's a massive twist in that, but as far as the human interaction between people, I don't know if it's as mannered in that as it becomes shortly thereafter. But I don't know, man, something about his oddness works for me. It's just a like individual thing. I don't feel like I'm giving him a pass. I just think it works for me. That water stuff, it's so obvious as obvious as Sixth Sense is subtle.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it still works. The big question is,
great way of putting it.
The big question is, though, why would aliens go to a fucking planet that's 90% water if water is their bugaboo? That's the question.
Because they're smart aliens.
I mean, if you think about it, and they don't really get into this, but a lot of places they show them locked. So, I mean, it's if you're in a spacecraft and you have the technology and the smarts to travel light years or whatever, then you can probably suss out where the water is and go to the places where it isn't. But I mean, we still have water fountains and sinks and faucets.
Human beings are made out of water.
Tubs. And I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit hinky. I still enjoy it.
You know what else I don't really like about this movie? Mel Gibson's performance, man, is not remotely good. I think at some point Mel Gibson just like should have turned these kinds of roles down because this is not the kind of person that Mel Gibson I think can play believably. Is like a father figure. Like Mel Gibson has made a career off of playing a certain kind of character that I think is just one dial click to the right of who he is on the right-hand side, if you know what I mean. And this is just a weird performance, right?
Yeah, and I think
it's very strange for Mel Gibson.
Common, right? It's strange for Mel Gibson, but I think it's common in the M. Night Shyamalan movies. I think at some point he starts pulling some really strange performances from people. It's that over-mannered. I don't mind him so much in this. It is.
But would you mind him more if there was no Joaquin Phoenix? If it was just him?
Yeah.
Because that's like what we could have been looking at with this kind of movie. Because again, in Sixth Sense, it was just Bruce Willis, really, as like the main male character. I think this movie really only works because Joaquin Phoenix's character is so likable. Like the only reason I would rewatch this movie, again, other than to just like sit and be in how weird it is as a movie, is because Joaquin Phoenix, like, I think you're right. This might be one of the few movies I like him in. He's just, remember that Johnny Cash movie?
Oh, he is good in that. Actually.
He is good in that, but he's good in that for the same reason he's good in Joker. It's because it's tapping into like a part of himself. This is Joaquin Phoenix playing very against type. Now we know this is against type. This is more like the character he plays in Her, like a gentle soul.
Very affable. Yeah, and I guess that new one, what is it? Come on, or something like that. He plays a more affable character. I like him in affable roles.
Yeah, I don't know what he's like. Again, I feel like we could make suppositions about who he is based on things that he's shown the world, but I don't think he's probably a super affable dude in real life. So, but he's married to Rooney Mara, so she must like him.
I'm sure he's fine.
His brother died when he was a kid, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, right. His public persona gives me hives, but I'm sure he's fine.
To quote Sean Bean, give the man a moment's rest for pity's sake.
Yeah.
Look, this is the moment though for M. Night, is it not? Like this is kind of the weirdo inflection point. Those first two movies were kind of maybe keeping the first two movies keeping the M. Night, the night part of the M. Night Shyamalan. He was pushing it down, and it kind of, I think this is the moment. Like if we go, what's the next movie after this? Right.
Well, the next is The Village, and that's why I want to watch that one again. It does have a twist, but I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, and I'm trying to remember.
It's like the twist of twists for all of these movies, right?
I know there's some odd stuff like with the Adrian Brody character, but he's a mentally disabled character. So I don't recall if like we're starting to get into weird stilted dialogue at this point or mannered acting as well. It's been too long since I've seen it. I just know that was the last one that I liked before seeing The Visit and Split and stuff. Lady in the Water, I don't even understand that movie at all.
It's a modern fairy tale.
It is a modern fairy tale, but I think
that's all M. Night ever said. That's all I remember from when the movie came out was like, it's a modern fairy tale. Like, who cares?
It was just the tone of that movie. And I think that's when the acting and the dialogue just became so bizarre that it's like, I was waiting for the twist because I wanted the movie to make sense. And it wasn't making sense to me. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on in this movie at all. Like,
wasn't that also an M. Night movie where he's in a lot of it?
I don't remember. I've only seen it the one time.
Something else.
We saw a sneak preview of it. So before it even came out, and I have not seen it since. Just haven't had zero desire to check it out.
I think the other thing for Signs, I think that really not bothers me, but makes me just question what all is the point of something like this. Is this like anti-twist stance that he takes in this movie? Like, I'm not going to give you a twist. Like, this is one of the few M. Night Shyamalan movies that doesn't have one. There's no twist here. It is aliens.
No, it is aliens, and it's
actually fucking aliens. Like, it's actually aliens, not
and it's everything that the kid has read or that they've heard on the news bears out. So it's almost to me like,
is it him? What is M. Night trying to say?
On purpose, anti.
What is he saying though? What is M. Night saying?
I can do a movie without a twist. That's what he's saying.
I mean, he did a movie. How well he did it, again, I think that's subjective. It is a well-made movie. It is a nice to look at movie. But fuck me, running the climax of this movie is a mess with a capital M. Everything from when they come out of the basement to the end of the movie is I almost feel like the movie lives and dies on the climax. If you can get on board with the climax, you're probably going to have enjoyed the movie. The climax is so clunky because they have to pay everything off, but they do it in the most ham-fisted way possible.
Yeah, it is.
And they wait with that fucking conclusion of the flashback to that scene. And I couldn't believe it when I watched it. I was like, they're waiting. We know what happened. We know what she said. He already told us what she said. Like, why are we seeing this? And on top of everything else, it's like 5 seconds. It's clunkily written. Mel Gibson asks the most asinine questions that you would ask someone if they were in that situation. He's not like, hey, honey, you have like a couple of moments. I love you. Like, you put yourself in that position, which is why Sixth Sense worked so well, because you put yourself in the position of Bruce Willis in the finale of that movie. And in this movie, you're supposed to put yourself in Mel Gibson's shoes, and he's asking the most idiotic questions. Does it hurt? I'm pinned against a tree. You fucking asshole. Of course, it's like stupid shit. But then she just starts going off on a tangent, and it's like, oh, right. Now she has to start expounding on what we're supposed to look for in this movie. Like, I don't understand saving it to the end of the movie.
Well, there's a few odd things, and it could very well be that they needed to, or somebody felt that it needed to be reinforced, because we get, and this happens in Unbreakable as well, where I don't think the studio is like trusting of the audience to understand things. So we get scenes repeated for us. And here we get the scene between Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, where they're talking about luck. Like, are you the type of person that believes that things, that luck means this or that luck means that? They replay that scene as
a bad miracle,
as well as the flashback. And so it's like, hey, audience, pay attention.
Yeah, this
is what's going to happen now.
That's all I could think of was that is there such thing as a bad miracle? Like, it was very close to that. It's from Nope. That same thing. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, I know why they're beating us over the head now. That you put it that way, I can see it making sense, but like, man, you got to trust the audience a little bit more than that. Come on.
I mean, it could have been from test screenings. Like, I didn't understand what does that mean? Why did she say those things?
Like, it was not the glasses of water all around the house that were the problem. It was why the wife was saying swing away when they mention 8 million times that Joaquin Phoenix is a fucking baseball player. Oh, it means to go have sex with other people. That's what it meant. Oh, swing away. Like, I don't like, and then you get the alien in the living room, and Mel Gibson pushes the TV in, and you get what I'm sure M. Night thought was the greatest shot in the history of shots in his movie, the reflection of the alien in the TV, which he does once to really stunning effect, and then he uses it 5 more times in the scene, and then he starts zooming in on the CGI alien's face, and the closer it gets, the worse it looks, to the point where you're just like, maybe you didn't need to show them.
They don't look that great.
They look awful. For a $72 million movie, where did the budget go when you see the aliens 3 times?
Yeah. Well, they should have.
A guy in a suit's not a great option, I know, but then rewrite the climax of your movie.
That's what they would do today.
What, a guy in a suit?
Well, they would do mocap because the aliens are tall. That's the thing, is like, we don't have, I mean, we've got some pretty,
Javier Botet. What about the guy?
And Doug Jones are both long, tall, lanky guys.
Doug Jones has been working since at least 1992.
Oh, yeah.
Hocus Pocus, from what I've heard.
No, he
was in Hocus Pocus. Did you know?
Yeah, they were both around at this time.
Yeah.
But
I don't get it. Like, it looks so bad. I can't imagine a studio going green light, guys. Like, whoa, what?
Because it looks like it's 100% CGI, like it wasn't
100%.
I mean, they could have done some motion capture stuff, like for the scene in Brazil or whatever. But it's not. They don't.
That scene works, and the scene in Mexico works because it's already grainy footage, so it doesn't matter.
It's still not that great looking, though.
It's not that great looking, but also you can get away with it,
especially when they freeze frame on it.
Okay, well, sure. Okay, fair. But when they don't play the scene over and over again, and they play it once, and they don't freeze frame it, it looks pretty good. It's a pretty good scare. But
it's a good scare.
you see the alien in their house and you just go, this is the same thing? Like, are we supposed to be scared here? And he's holding Rory Culkin and it looks super weird too, because it's a CGI and it's been somebody green screened out and just, and then Rory Culkin doesn't inhale the toxic gas because he's asthmatic.
His lungs were closed.
Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix kills the alien because he likes to play baseball. And then Abigail Breslin, because she doesn't drink water, kills the alien with water by accident.
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson does nothing.
Gets his faith back. Because all these things lined up, not by chance.
What if there are no coincidences?
It's by providence. So,
oh my God.
You go. Now he's got his collar back on.
You know what I think about Providence? Turn it off. You know what I think? I think that it's mighty convenient. And when they say, what if there are no coincidences? I get the double meaning. I fucking get it. We all get it. But that's the premise of your movie. What if there are no coincidences? Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Because things aren't, but they are, whatever, fine. But you can't hang a lantern on it. Like, come on, that's lazy, isn't it? Is it not? Is it not lazy? I don't know. Like, and apparently I'm in the wrong here because this movie was rather well received when it came out. So Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars out of 4, dude. If you could believe that. Yeah, I didn't.
No, I'm actually surprised because I thought that this was sort of.
This was a disappointment.
That's what I remember about it.
Made a lot of money. $72 million budget, Good. 408.
Good.
I guess you're right and I'm wrong. Roger Ebert said, M. Night Shyamalan's Signs is the work of a born filmmaker able to summon apprehension out of thin air. When it is over, we think not how little has been decided, but how much has been experienced. At the end of the film, I had to smile, recognizing how Shyamalan had essentially ditched a payoff. He knows, as we all sense, that payoffs have grown boring. He didn't forego a payoff, Ebert. He had the goddamn alien in the house. If they, you know what? I'm just going to put this out here. Here's how you write the ending of this movie. They go upstairs. The aliens are gone.
There you go.
Why was that not the ending? If you want to talk about miracles, there's your miracle. That the aliens came to our planet, could clearly annihilate us because they talk about how many people are dead, and they just one morning left after they'd been there for a couple weeks. Like, is that not a miracle? Like, that should, like, the macro level problem of one alien is fine, but why would I guess they said some of the stragglers were left behind, but like, okay.
Yeah. Well, they left there injured. And I think this guy was just out to get Mel Gibson because he cut his fucking fingers off.
Right. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if we're going to talk about a real, like, subverting of your expectations, they should just come upstairs and go, walk out and see the ships leaving and then cut the credits. Like there's your quote, subverting of expectations. There's your lack of a twist. Cause then the twist ending is there is nothing. Like what Roger Ebert is getting at, I feel like I could have enjoyed that movie where it just ends. Like it's like 10 Cloverfield Lane. Remember we talked about that? Yeah. Like, she gets out of the bunker. I would contend it never should have been aliens. Like, she just leaves and it's like, what the fuck was going on? Because the alien part is the worst part. And in this movie, the alien part is the worst part. It's the problem that the entire movie has to put pieces into to fix. They have to put the water glasses in. They have to put the fucking baseball bat in. They have to put the asthma in, all for that final one scene to make sense. So all these other things are so weird throughout the movie, but they make sense in this one scene. Like, that is short-sighted filmmaking. Tell me another movie that does it like this. This is like the only movie I can think of where things are so obviously weird. Like, the water glass thing is just like, that's not, it's like Allison Williams eating dry cereal with milk. Like, nobody really does this. Do people actually leave glasses of water around their house unfinished en masse? If you do, reach out to us and let us know. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to argue with you about that, but I think it boils down to I'm not going to give you a twist in this one,
which is fine. But I think he could have done a better job of not giving us a twist.
Yeah, I think he's setting up people's expectations for a twist, and it never comes. So it could have just been a exercise in breaking free from a stereotype that was based on 2 movies. What is is what happens at the end of Unbreakable a twist? Not really. It's just a revelation.
Right. It's not, it's like the thing in Sixth Sense is a dyed in the wool twist. Thing in the Unbreakable's like, yeah, okay, so what? Like all those people still died.
Yeah.
Like, I guess does it matter who killed them? Like, I guess for the context of this story, it does. But again, like it's in that movie, it's subtle, but it's obvious, but subtle with like, oh, it's obvious that he's going to be the bad guy. It's obvious that he's like understanding when he says the Mr. Glass thing. It's like, that was the moment in that movie where I'm like, okay, that sounds like a bad guy's name. Like it sounds like a villain's name. Mm-hmm. And then did they ever even give Bruce Willis a name in Unbreakable? I guess he's given a name in Glass, the Overseer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. Probably why they didn't give him one. But in this movie, I think if they had really wanted to subvert expectations, they should have just had them come upstairs and the aliens are gone. And there you go.
Yeah, there's no real...
What's the point? Like,
climax,
what's the point of the aliens? What's the point? Yeah, but isn't that a twist in and of it itself? No climax? Roger Ebert's sitting here saying that that's what they did anyways.
Right.
But that's not what happened, because you spend all this time fucking trying to get the kid to breathe again. And the alien is there and the alien's not fighting back. It's just getting its head beaten in. And then one little glass of water it's so very.
All right, guy. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's very dorky, Mr. Begley.
I like it.
It's fun. It's a fun movie to watch. I don't know how good, quote unquote, I find it to be, but it's a fun. I will give you M. Night Shyamalan's movies are fun to watch. The worse they get or the weirder they get, the more entertaining they become outside of just what's being presented to us. Like how weird this movie is kind of part of the fun of it. The charm of it for me is how weird this movie is. So like I said, I'm not going to say I don't like this movie. It's just really fucking weird. And the choices that he makes are so specific that you can't argue that M. Night Shyamalan made the movie that he wanted to. This is his movie through and through.
I agree.
Yeah. I haven't seen The Village though.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
That has like an actual massive twist, right?
Yeah, it has a real big twist. Yeah, I mean, I constantly say that I'm up for whatever he does next. I'm very curious about the new movie. I know nothing about the book that it's based on, but it looks interesting. Rupert Grint's in it.
It'll just be interesting with him adapting someone else's stuff.
Yeah,
I know Old was an adaptation. Yeah,
which is interesting because it's got him like stamped all over it as far as direction and especially the direction of actors.
Which, you know what? I give him massive amounts of credit for that. He knows what he wants. It's just very strange.
Check out Servant. It's a trip. You have to go in knowing that all of that stuff, the weird acting and dialogue is going to be in there, but it's really good. It's really interesting.
It's interesting how mild it is in The Sixth Sense. Isn't it so weird how like dialed down, toned down it is in that movie comparatively to something this 2 movies later? Holy cow, man. He just like fully embraces what he wants in screenwriting.
Yeah, it's definitely the one film where people act like people and it's very human and very even keeled.
Yeah, for sure. And Unbreakable, I think, still kind of is in that same world.
Yeah,
maybe a little less because I think to your point, it's a little bit more high concept. But then you get to this and it's like all bets are off. They're all weirdos. They all talk. Every time they talk, they say something strange. They don't.
Yep.
We're not remotely human sounding.
Yeah.
Not remotely human acting. They don't react to one another in a human way. Yeah.
That's where it starts.
Yeah.
That's my contention this is kind of where it starts.
And I would be 100% inclined to agree with you because once again, by the end of this movie, I just, all right, sure, whatever. You know what I mean? Like by the end of this movie with Mel Gibson and he's fixing his collar and he's going out. It's like, but fucking aliens, man, we're in your house. Everybody's just so blasé, back to normal.
Yeah.
Like I guess so. All right.
I want the secret sequel to this.
Yeah.
Because they talk about in the film, a lot of times they come back.
Yeah.
If they get defeated, they come back with more. So
that would be pretty good. I would watch that, but as long as Mel
those-
Gibson's not in it.
Those two kids are still acting, man. Rory Culkin
true.
and Abigail Breslin.
Rory Culkin, pretty good for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, those Culkins have that. I don't know. Something, man. They've got something.
One of the better parts of Scream 4.
Yeah.
That's
a whole other story.
Talk about a movie where people don't act like real people. And not in a good way. Not in a fun, weird way. More just in like a very generica way. Yes. Before we close this out about Signs, do you know who was going to play the Joaquin Phoenix role but had to drop out because of surgery?
I have no idea. Rupert Grint.
Mark Ruffalo. Dave Toschi himself. That would be something. That would be something.
They kind of look more like each other than Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson.
Yeah. When I was watching it, my wife was like, "Is that supposed to be his brother or his brother-in-law?" I was like, "That's supposed to be his brother." She was like, "They look nothing alike." Yeah. You know what's funny? I'm glad we didn't talk much about Mel Gibson because he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say. He's fine in this.
Yeah.
It is an odd role for him, like you said. Yeah. It's the Bruce Willis role that Bruce Willis didn't play.
Right. Because Bruce Willis seems to actually be able to move within the acting space and have a little bit more acting legs to him than Mel Gibson, which is fine. Mel Gibson does one thing very well. He's kind of been trading in that his entire career. Bruce Willis, I think everybody always forgets that Bruce Willis was on Moonlighting.
I don't, because I watched that show.
I know, but people my age, and younger, do not remember that Bruce Willis is not action star Bruce Willis. It was comedic rom-com, lead with Sybil Shepherd, for fuck's sake.
Yep.
Yeah. There were people at the time who were like, Die Hard with that guy? Yeah, right. He's not believable. Now it's like Bruce Willis, action star. Nope, he's a ghost.
A sad ghost.
A very sad, depressing, maudlin ghost. Yeah, I think, I walk away from this episode probably Sixth Sense. Like I said, it's his best movie. I think it's my favorite of the movies of his that I've seen, but then I also really like Split and I want to rewatch it. I think Unbreakable's okay. I think Unbreakable now kind of falls under the immense weight of other projects that have come since, that have kind of done things to that movie that you can't, it's like watching The Matrix, right? Like people can't really watch The Matrix anymore because it, like everything else, you have to just ignore it. Like ignore 2, 3. And if you didn't like 4, like, with Signs, you don't have to do that. With Sixth Sense, you don't have to do that. They're their own singular contained thing. Unbreakable, like I said, there is a universe where nothing else ever happened. And I think Unbreakable would have been long-term remembered better if nothing else had ever come after, right?
Yeah, well, definitely not Glass.
Split, maybe.
And it made no difference in Split. I mean, you could have excised.
It wasn't even really a twist in that movie. That was just like a little bonus cherry on top.
Yeah.
It kind of didn't even recontextualize the movie. It made sense why the movie was the way it was, because now it's like, okay, so if that universe exists where people can just be superhuman, there must be people that could just be like on the spectrum, is like a weird superpower thing. Like it
right
makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, everything else like post that just, yeah. And I think these two movies are pretty good. Signs and Sixth Sense are pretty good self-contained little stories. One works a lot better than the other. And you know what? I'll give Signs credit for being an alien story. I love a good alien story. And there are not enough of these kinds of alien stories, like Out on a Farm. Yeah. Aliens fucking with people. It's very Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins. I mean, it's inspired by a lot of real things. It's that, and it's Whitley Strieber and a bunch of stuff. So I appreciate that. I know where M. Night is drawing his influences from, but then you have Mel Gibson and Joaquin being just it's being strange. So final thoughts, Begley, on all three of these this film journey we've gone on with our dear friend, Mr. M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, I'm a fan of all three of these. And I agree with you. I think Sixth Sense is definitely the finest of these three. Probably, I mean, when I think about the rest of his movies, it's the most, I don't want to say well-made, but I think...
Say well thought out.
Yeah, I mean, everything fell into place for that one, whether it was luck or whatever. Everything works.
A little bit of providence maybe in Sixth Sense, huh?
Yeah. And I'm willing to go to bat for the guy. Like I said, I'm up for anything he's putting out. It will be interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, that I think the final part of your statement is the part that I definitely like think about most with M. Night Shyamalan is he's not going to do something that's not weird. At this point, that's a given. Like he's just going to do
that would
whatever.
be the twist.
Yeah, right. What a twist. It's just a normal movie.
It's just a drama.
M. Night Shyamalan's second movie then is the real twist, that Rosie O'Donnell movie.
Yeah.
The real twist. I want a sequel to that movie with James McAvoy in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As whatever he's called.
The Horde. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, M. Night definitely has a way of making things interesting and a way of, I think, contributing something positive to the filmmaking landscape overall. I mean, the success of his movies, I think, is going to vary from person to person. But if nothing else, we got the Sixth Sense out of it, right? Like the movie's great. The movie is genuinely a classic of the genre. And, we always talk about putting your best foot forward. Like there's a few better feet to put forward than something like The Sixth Sense, really. So everything else is kind of gravy, to be perfectly honest. Like everything else kind of doesn't matter,
There's going to be some hits and misses, but for the most part, they're generally pretty interesting. And if nothing else, a little bit weird.
Yeah. And, will he ever make a movie that is as good as The Sixth Sense or eclipses it? Probably not. But, that's okay. It's such a good movie. I don't expect any, it would be hard to make something better than The Sixth Sense. I wonder if M. Night Shyamalan feels like he's always chasing that, or if at some point in his career, he will feel like he doesn't have to anymore. But
hopefully he doesn't feel that way.
I hope so. Cause at this point, you are the one who made The Sixth Sense. So what else do you have to say for yourself that you could do it again? You've already done it once. Like most people never even do it one time.
Right.
So, let alone 4 or 5 times, like somebody like Spielberg. So, and hopefully, I mean, what's funny is, to bring it full circle all the way back to the reason we did this episode, I have a greater appreciation for Jordan Peele now, because comparing the two of them at least in character dialogue feels unfair. Peele's stuff feels a lot more humanistic. I mean, I think that's what makes it so good, is because it is so humanistic and real. And yes, there is a heavy dose of wordplay and double entendre layered on there, but they still feel real. And I think that's why those double entendres still work. The black mold thing, we left a piece of mom in the kitchen. First time you hear it, you don't even think anything of it. But the second time, it's recontextualized. Great.
Yeah. It's the same thing you get with these movies. Once you've seen it, then you can go back and go, yeah, that's obvious.
But then you get to something like Nope that doesn't have a twist.
Right. I mean,
it works.
Parallels pretty directly. I mean,
to Signs, yeah, it really does. Like I said, to bring this full circle, I think Nope and Signs are a good 1 and 2. If you want to do Nope with a more contemporary movie versus doing it with something like we talked about, like a Spielberg, like a Close Encounters or a Jaws, to do it with Signs would be pretty good. I think there's a fucking farmhouse in both. There's aliens, and it I think both of them have kind of an anticlimax in a lot of ways. Like Signs definitely has a climax, and so does Nope. But I think they both insist on pulling back. I think Nope does a better job at pulling back than Signs does. I think Nope has a better conclusion anyways. But yeah, they're very much in the same camp. But I mean, Nope's better, I think, overall. But I think Signs, again, I can't deny that Signs doesn't do weird things well. It's just don't make me feel like I'm crazy to not think that these things are weird and not commonplace.
They're definitely weird.
I know, but M. Night in the other movies, it's like a character goes, yeah, that's weird. In Signs, it's like, yeah, it's weird. You know what I mean? It's not, they're playing it off like it's no big deal. In Signs, in Sixth Sense, it's like, this is weird. This is strange. Like Toni Collette's character in Sixth Sense, her entire character throughout the movie is mad because she thinks her son is fucking nuts or fucking with her or something.
Yeah.
There's none of that. There's none of those kinds of character moments in Signs. And that's what it was missing. That's what it desperately needed. And they try. I just think probably the injection of religion into the movie also didn't help. It's just too on the nose.
Yeah,
Two on the
that's
nose.
another through line that kind of creeps in to his films, along with The Broken Family. And I'm always curious about that. I mean, it's pretty heavy in Servant. Not that, I mean, Servant is something where he's executive producer. He has written some of the episodes. It's not like solely his creation.
Not writer director M. Night,
but he has written and directed a lot of the episodes. His daughter's written, or at least directed, some of the episodes as well. And it has his feel around it as well. And it's very religious, informed by cults and other religious things.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a fucking trippy show, man.
I'll have to check it out. Like I said, I mean, my kind of critique of Signs aside, like I said, like I definitely enjoyed it this time a lot more than I had last time. It's just like, don't try to pass off weird things as commonplace, dude. Because like, I'm not here for that. Like, I'm not in this day and age. In this day and age with screenwriting the way that it is, like this kind of story, this kind of screenwriting doesn't exist anymore. It exists because M. Night's doing it, and that's about it. You know what I mean? Like anybody else would be like, this is stilted and strange and weird. But when M. Night does it in a more contemporary movie, it's like, it's an M. Night Shyamalan film. When a movie is you because you made it, like, yeah, all right. I guess we're just going to give you a pass then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sort of his thing now.
Yeah. Good for him. Good. You know what? It's hard enough to be successful in the movie industry, and it's really hard to make your own like place in it. So good for him. Yeah. Seriously. I'm going to check out Servant on your suggestion. So Rupert Grint and a robot baby doll. Isn't that's all I know about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure the show is strayed far from whatever that was at this point, but
there's some genuinely creepy scenes like throughout the series, and weird shit and gross shit. Like it's one of the shows that I genuinely look forward to the next season of, and I can't honestly say that about too many shows.
Sure. I'll have to check it out then on like I said, on your suggestion alone. So until the next time you and I bring the listeners, God knows what collaboration, where can people find you, Mr. Begley? What's going on over at the Wake Up Heavy podcast?
Well, you can find me at wakeupheavy.com, on all social media at Wake Up Heavy. You can also find this show, The Kulturecast, and numerous other shows at weirdingwaymedia.com. And right now, the latest episode is on Angel Heart. That's available with Mike White and Colin Gallagher guest hosting. Pretty soon here, I'll be doing the second part of that Make Your Work double bill with Barfly. And probably pretty soon I'll have the latest episode with my daughter and I talking about the movies that we watched in September. Check all that out.
Sometimes you don't have a very long, busy answer, but it's that time of the year, folks. And Mark Begley is busy.
Cranking
that podcast content out.
And you can find the Jordan Peele episode on either Wake Up Heavy or the Kulturecast.
That's right. And you can find the Kulturecast, like Mark Begley mentioned, over at weirdingwaymedia.com, along with 19 shows. I guess 18 other shows, but 19 shows in total. If you want to find something to listen to that you're probably going to love and want to listen to a lot of, boy, there's almost 1,000 episodes of The Projection Booth, and there's almost 600 episodes of the Kulturecast. And that's just 2 of the 19 shows that you can find over at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for me, if you want to find the stuff that I specifically work on, cstachiw.com, cstachiw.com. That's my link tree. Go there if you want. You don't have to, because like I said, everything else is at Weirding Way Media. As for this show, Kulturecast.com, patreon.com/Kulturecast, all the places you can go to support the show financially or non-financially. But the place to go to non-financially support the show is iTunes. Rate and review the show and give us a listen there. Mr. Begley, until next time, it's been a pleasure as always, and fun. We always talk about 3 movies. We're always talking about a lot of stuff. Feels like the old days of this podcast where I used to do 2 movies a week. Whew. Yeah, 2 movies an episode twice a week, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, it was real. The dark days of podcasting. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.